You know what you're listening to?
Next question.
It's Dan Patrick on Demand. Thank you. Here he is, joined by the Danettes. It's Dan Patrick.
Welcome to the program. Final hour on this Monday. Dan and the Danettes, Dan Patrick Show. Hope you had a great weekend. Rich Eisen from the NFL Network will join us coming up. I called him a Michigan apologist since he went there. He sent me a text back. A Michigan apologist, question mark? How about a Michigan supporter? Yes, Paul.
Will Rich Eisen, can he be objective on the fourth down spot play? Or is he going to Michigan thought process of the fourth down spot?
Well, I was. And I grew up an Ohio State fan, but I didn't think it was a good spot for Michigan. And I do understand Michigan would have a gripe with the officiating, but I still look at it bigger picture, and that is Ohio State shouldn't have won that game. Michigan gave them an opportunity. A couple of times. You threw a pick six, you threw a couple interceptions, you fumble at the 2-yard line. You didn't deserve to win. And I know there's discrepancies in the number of penalties called, but it didn't come down to just that spot there. You gave Ohio State an opportunity, and Michigan was the better team, in my opinion. Yeah, Paulie.
You know, I was thinking about this. Do you think Michigan fans, obviously the loss stinks, but more so that they missed the opportunity of being in the Final Four? They still have a chance, but it felt like Michigan football was just a win. They haven't beat Ohio State at Ohio State in a while. And that's like the we're back signature. You know that rivalry.
But I think Harbaugh needs that because right now he's just generated a lot of positive publicity. But you still have to follow through and win something big. And they haven't been able to do that yet. And until you get that, that's when you turn the corner. That's when I think you're going to get the attention of Ohio State and maybe the rest of the Big Ten. Harbaugh has been a great story. He's been fun, been a great guest. But, you still have to win those games. If you want to be in there and talk like you're part of the big boys, part of the, sit in the big boy table, you have to win those games. That's the difference here. And until you have that happen, Ohio State fans are going to look at Harbaugh and Michigan and say, okay, good competitors, but Ohio State's still the class. I was shocked at how animated Urban Meyer was. He's yelling to get the crowd, he's like 40 yards. He's running, trying to get them all pumped up. He collapses on the field after they win. And then all of a sudden, Sam Ponder interviews him. And he's like, oh, you got to give a lot of credit over there. That team on the other side, that team up north, they played really well. Meanwhile, he's going crazy. All right, 877-3DP show, email address dp@danpatrick.com. Final hour, we'll talk to Rich. Late last night, the Chiefs over the Broncos, some questionable coaching decisions, certainly one, I thought, by Gary Kubiak in Denver. You have your kicker attempting a field goal 5 yards further than he's ever kicked before, and you're doing it on a cold night. I had a problem with that, because if you miss, now all of a sudden, you've given the Chiefs an opportunity to get into field goal range. And the biggest problem I had is, okay, you want to kick, you have confidence in your field goal kicker, fine. Run the football in the previous play. Maybe you get a couple of yards, you get it in position where you want it, and you're going to take some time off the clock. That's what I didn't understand. You have confidence in your kicker, fine. But a lot of times when you want to kick further, you almost go at it, you go down at it a little bit harder, and he kicked the ground first, and then he knew he'd missed it. But Kansas City got a big win. Huge win there for them. Denver drops to 7-4, and with the Raiders at 9-2. And I know maybe not everybody's bought into the Raiders. I love the Raiders. I thought they were going to be the surprise team this year, and they've been a lot of fun to watch. At times they can drive you crazy, but they've been a lot of fun to watch. I don't know if they're a great team because I don't think there's a great team. I think Dallas is as close to a great team as New England's not a great team. They're really not. Oakland doesn't have a great secondary, but they do have skill position. They have defensive line, Khalil Mack. Carr is good. The receivers are good. Running back is good. I don't know if they're not tested, playoff tested, and that's going to be the big difference for that. Could you imagine seeing the Raiders go to New England? Although, as Seton pointed out, 15 years since the Tuck Rule game, so that means it's time for the Raiders to have a little retribution. We get a little snow.
Writes itself,
yeah,
buddy.
yeah, middle of January, a little snow. Hashtag Tommy against the Raiders, Khalil Mack. No tuck rule this time.
I think the Raiders have it would be a home game for them if they met in the playoffs. I think if there's a tiebreaker or whatever.
Oh, well, record-wise, yeah.
Yeah.
We got a lot of football left to be
there's
played.
a lot of
football. They still have to go to Denver and Kansas City. Yes, Paulie.
If I was a fan of the Raiders, I could never get over that tuck rule game because it's
and they haven't.
It's obviously a fumble.
Yes,
but it's one of the more weirdest calls in NFL history.
Yeah,
agree to disagree.
Let's chop it up.
Objection overruled. Packers tonight against the Eagles. It feels like America is just waiting to pounce on Aaron Rodgers again. If Rodgers doesn't win this game or doesn't play well, it feels like there's going to be daggers. Talons. It's going to be fangs there for Aaron Rodgers playing against the Eagles. Yes, Seton.
We're watching the tuck rule. It's like the worst call of all time.
It's the worst. I don't care what's written in the language. Brady's like bringing the ball back into his chest.
I know. It's so silly.
It's the worst call of all time.
But what was lost in that was Vinatieri kicking that field goal. In those conditions. Foot of snow and there's Vinatieri. But yeah, you watch that video. Poor Charles Woodson.
Oh, it's awful.
Well, Jerry Rice is standing there.
Yeah. Oh. Yep. All right, we'll get some phone calls here. A lot of debate over who are the top 4 teams. Now, I'm not talking about who's getting in. It's who are the 4 best teams in college football right now. Is Michigan still one of the top 4 teams? Ohio State is. Alabama certainly is. Is Clemson one of the top 4 teams? And what's the rationale here? Because I'm not quite sure. I do get the feeling nobody would want to play, well, Alabama might. Nobody want to play USC right now. Because they're a good team. Oklahoma's playing well right now. But they got Oklahoma State coming up this weekend. Is the Heisman Trophy race open? A little bit. It feels like that. I don't know if somebody can steal it right now. I just don't know if anybody's gotten enough publicity to steal it. Yeah, Paulie?
Dalvin Cook from Florida State does not get enough credit. It seems like he leads his team with every win, the running back.
Yeah, but we haven't talked about them since they were blown out by Louisville. I mean, nationally, nobody's talked about Florida State. I like how Jimbo Fisher wasn't leaving Florida State, but then there was reportedly a $50 million a demand, and then they said no, and then they go, we'll take, maybe we could bring in Tom Herman. Then Texas goes, wait a minute, what? That's our guy. And then they went and pounced on him, and then Ed Orgeron got the job. And I've been hearing Lane Kiffin going to be his offensive coordinator. Can you leave Alabama as offensive coordinator to go to LSU as offensive coordinator? I don't know if Lane Kiffin, it feels like he's an attractive assistant coach but a toxic head coach, and I don't know if somebody's going to hire him, which is kind of strange. But, yeah, so I don't know what happens at Oregon, Baylor, Purdue, Les Miles involved in this, so still a lot of drama here. All right, I promised phone calls here. James in Virginia. James, thanks for holding. What do you have for me?
Oh, thank you for taking my... happy Monday, man. I would be remiss if I didn't take the time to express my condolences to you, Mr. Patrick, man. You know, January 1 will be 2 years since Pops passed, and, you know, the best advice I ever got on that is you never get over it, you just learn to live through it, man. So my condolences. As I digress, my best of the weekend, I'm going to have to throw in 2 of them. My alma mater, man, Old Dominion University football team, finished off a 9-3 season, going to a bowl, first time ever. That is awesome. Go Monarchs. Second best, I actually like the call to go for the field goal late in the game. If you punt that ball away, you're pretty much conceding the win and going for the tie. With that defense, I think they could have made a stop. Obviously, they didn't. But, hey, in Denver, I go for the kick. Okay. And then my worst, of course, watching the Redskins getting swept by the Cowboys. Man, Dak Prescott, that boy is the real deal. Very poised, making plays in and out the pocket. But I don't think that's the last the Cowboys going to see the Redskins.
Ooh.
I think somewhere in the playoffs, they might come back around. And Kirk Cousins, man, he's on a fire star right now. So hail to the Redskins and hail, not hell. Oh, and one last thing, man, if I can, Hey, and ode to the whose stats would you want? Here you go, right here, man. Hail to the stats, hail victory. Whose stats would you want? Fight for ODP. Have a great day, gentlemen.
Thank you, James. Killing it.
Acapella.
Yeah.
You got a lot in there.
Yeah.
Well done.
Take that, Mariah Carey.
Boom.
Shay and Irving. Hi, Shay.
Hey, Danny.
Hey, bud.
All right, Cowboys.
Okay.
Dak only threw it 24 times, so that's a good
We like
trend.
that. We like that.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
But they only had like 23 designed running plays. And I want to know why the hell it's not more of a... Why would you put more risk on Dak when you need him? Clearly, you need him more than you do Zeke, right? I mean, that's clear.
Well, you do have Tony Romo.
All right, that's it. Enough. Danny, my week was hell, and I think it's about damn time somebody started answering for it. Father-in-law was trying to watch soccer all damn week. Then Man U was playing Spain of Gibraltar or some crap like that on Thursday, on Turkey Day, during the Cowboys game. He's watching it on his cell phone, and the roommate audibly speaks up and says, why can't we do it on the split screen? Because that's what DirecTV offers. And I almost went into shock, man. It had to be revived with whiskey and cigarettes. It was awful. And I have, after this week, Paulie, I've got 5 good seconds of soccer I want to lay on you.
Whoa! All right.
Converting him.
Hit the clock.
Soccer is a lie created by people who think they're better than you. Turn it off!
Thank you, Shay.
Whatever.
Soccer was created by people who think they're better than you?
Did you hear the rage when he yelled, turn it off?
A little scared here. A little scared.
All right, we'll take a break. Rich Eisen's going to join us up next, not to be confused with a Michigan apologist, merely a Michigan supporter. Now that we made that clarification. Let's see. Coming up on 19 after the hour, more of your phone calls. Dwayne Wade, Reggie Aloysius Miller on the program tomorrow. This is the Dan Patrick Show.
Shopping on Black Friday reminds me of one of those panic scenes in a zombie movie. The ones where everyone is trampling each other to get to the back of the store. We've all found ourselves in a swirling sea of shoppers before, and it's not pretty. This year, break out of your old Black Friday routine by going to jackthreads.com. With deals up to 80% off all week long, Jack Threads is your one-stop shop for stuffing your closet with this season's greatest, most essential gear. It's not just a one-day thing. The Jack Threads Black Friday sale runs an entire week with deals up to 80% off. Plus, with Jack Threads tryout program, you can try out any of their stylish t-shirts, jeans, and more at home for free. You'll only pay for what you keep. If it doesn't fit, don't worry. Jack Threads gives you everything you need to ship things back. This Black Friday, skip the lines and save up to 80% off by checking out jackthreads.com. And trust me, I am not buying gifts for other people. I am buying clothes for myself to wear on the Dan Patrick Show, and you should do the same because they're awesome. That's jackthreads.com to save up to 80% off men's clothing. jackthreads.com.
More of your phone calls coming up as we always do on a Monday. Best and worst of the weekend. McLovin, update the poll results here.
Is Michigan one of the top 4 teams in the country, one of the best 4 teams in the country? 56% say yes.
All right. He is Rich Eisen, NFL Network host of the Rich Eisen Show on DirecTV's Audience Network that follows ours in about 40 minutes from now, and Rich joins us on the program. Rich, where did you watch the Michigan-Ohio State game?
at home with Susie and the kids. Just, that's it. My phone, I put my phone away, Dan.
Wow.
Not to be trusted. But I knew it too, and I knew the reason why I said it on the show last week, and because I knew the Big Ten refs had a coup de grace coming, and I didn't want to tweet about it or text about it or do anything stupid. And sure enough, they had something nice and cooked up. But I will tell you this: I agree with you, and I will say it all the time. Rod Woodson told me that Chuck Noll would always tell the Steelers this before going out on the field: play better than the ref's ref. And when it all comes down to it, the turnovers and the mistakes allowed Michigan to have the door open for some of these penalties to not be called or be called, and that's part of the reason why they got 2 losses right now.
What do you make of Harbaugh after the game?
I don't blame him. I feel the same way. And I know that he's going to be criticized for whining, complaining. I heard the show open for you. As you know, I listen to your show going to work every day, like most of us here in Los Angeles, and that's part of the criticism. But he's only giving voice to what a lot of us feel, and it happens all the time. I mean, I'm serious. The Big Ten has a major problem with its officiating. It's going to happen in Indianapolis this coming weekend. It happens almost every time in a big game. And against Iowa, Michigan had a phantom face mask penalty called on it that allowed Iowa better field position for the game-winning field goal. But again, don't put yourself in that position by fumbling the opening kickoff or throwing interceptions or turning the ball over or being inefficient in other parts of the game. You open yourself up to that, and that's where things currently stand. I wish my school was not involved in this 2-loss morass. I wish they would be in a much better position, and unfortunately they're not right now.
Yeah, as I'm watching, there's no doubt in my mind Michigan feels like the better team. They just made mistakes, and it didn't come down to penalties. The spot I didn't like for J.T. Barrett, but, Harbaugh's got to keep his composure there. You can't get flagged for throwing your clipboard, even though it seems very trivial.
Yeah, I mean, look, you even remarked about Urban Meyer's,
cheerleading.
How he's throwing, he's but I don't want to say antics because it's not. He's into it.
Yeah,
and everybody's into it. I mean, there's a reason why 17 million people tuned in the middle of an afternoon here. Because they're watching how much it matters to everybody involved, and so to flag that sort of thing is ridiculous. And but that's not really what that's not really what cost them. I really don't want to come across as I'm making excuses. There's with the officiating, but there's always an issue with it. Always. I can even show you the text that I did exchange with two of my friends from college, saying, it's coming, and I think it's going to come in the form of a pass interference penalty on a long down and distance on third down, and then 2 seconds later, I'm like Nostradamus. It happened.
Does anybody cry in the house?
I did scare Cooper over the spot of the football.
Oh, so you yelled.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. But after that, though, it was a teachable moment, Dad. After that, it was a teachable moment.
Your wife was teaching you.
No. Well, she does, as you know, Susie, she does that all the time. Yeah. But, yeah, you know what I mean? So, bottom line is this. Way too many mistakes. They had the game. They had the game in many different ways, not sewn up, but in their control, and couldn't close it. And but I will say this too, Dan. I've spent 10 years prior to Harbaugh. I guess after the 1 versus 2 game, things kind of changed with the Appalachian State loss, and then Lloyd Carr going, leading to Rich Rod and Brady Hoke, and then there were just so many losses that were so brutal. And I would just look at games like that Saturday with other teams playing in them, saying, I wish my team would be playing in something that mattered so much, with so much on the line. And now it's happening, and I absolutely take great solace in that. But this one really, really hurts.
He's Rich Eisen from the NFL Network. If we had a Final Four in the NFL, and you could take just the 4 best teams, it doesn't have to be 2 from the NFC 2 from the AFC.
Right.
New England, Oakland,
and then
Dallas.
I would take Dallas and Seattle. I would.
Oh, you would take Seattle?
Yes, I definitely would.
Yeah, it's just a weird team. They've gone 3 games without an offensive touchdown. They got
I know.
roughed up in Tampa.
I know. The Russell Wilson offense sometimes disappears at the most head-scratching times. But still, they're battle-tested. They're really great on defense. They really are. They played that game yesterday, gave up a couple of early touchdowns to Mike Evans, and then essentially wiped them out from there on in. And had the offense been more efficient and put points on the board, they would have won that game too. and Tampa's clearly a hot team right now. I like Seattle a lot. Dallas is absolutely the best team, but if there's TB12, who's the greatest equalizer of all, that's sitting there in New England, and I like the Raiders a lot. Yesterday we can make a lot of Derek Carr and him going out and how it switched the momentum around, but Khalil Mack was a guy who won that game for him yesterday, and he could be that Von Miller type coming around the edge that gives New England issues when should they meet on a January day. But I would take those 4 teams.
Yeah, we've been talking about that, trying to figure this out. The Chiefs and Broncos finished last night. I didn't agree with going with the kick only from the perspective of if you're going to go for a 65-yarder, why not run the ball on the previous down and run some clock just in case you don't miss it? You can't give Kansas City any opportunity here, and that was the only thing that I weighed. It's 38 degrees. You're kicking. He'd never kicked 5 yards farther than anything he'd ever made, and I don't care if you're making them in pregame. I've seen guys make them in pregame all the time. And they get to a game and it's different. I disagree with it. Your thoughts in the moment on that kick?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was great. You're punting. You're basically telling everybody, let's play for the tie and go home. And in the long run, that would be the big boy approach, just to say that I'm looking at the long run picture, and they'd be sitting there at 6th in the standings right now in front of Miami instead of 7. But, that was Von Miller and that defense that was making sure Alex Smith could hardly move the ball.
Unbelievable.
All night long. So I'm thinking I'm going to give my guy a chance to win. But you're right, making sure that they either tie or don't win as opposed to either tie or lose.
Well, you can kick it, but just run the football to run some
clock. No, that
clock.
makes sense. And even if you do that, you're making Andy Reid burn his final timeout, which they needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'd agree with you on that front. In terms of Michigan, by the way, Michigan being the better team, the issue is one of the top 4 teams. The issue is what's the criteria? If the criteria is win-loss, Michigan is not one of the best teams, top 4 teams. They're not. And one-loss teams should get the opportunity to go before a 2-loss team. But if you're sitting here saying, what is the criteria? Is the criteria having a team that's playing hot? Well, then, if that's the case, then Michigan is not one of those teams either, having lost 2 of the last 3. If you are looking at a game like Saturday and saying, I want one of those for the national championship, to be one of the semifinal teams, you want something that intense, that closely contested, then maybe you take the 2 teams that actually just played it and play it again. See how that goes.
Wow.
I don't know if that's a criteria. If it isn't, then Michigan is not one of the top 4 teams in the country.
Who's on the program?
Mooch, Steve Mariucci, Chris Long, who was the closer of the Patriots yesterday, and the Patriots are playing his former team in the Rams coming up this week, so it should be an interesting chat with him. And I was hoping it would be a much cheerier chat. We've got Michigan royalty, NCIS Mark Harmon, the son of Tom Harmon here. Would have been much nicer result. Would have been a much nicer conversation, but I'm looking forward to chatting with him anyway. So it'll be good times with Mark Harmon here of NCIS.
Yeah, but Mark only cares about UCLA. He doesn't care about Michigan.
I don't know, though. I mean, when Devin Gardner was given his dad's number, he was part of the process of discussing it. I mean, he's still somewhat involved in the Mason Blue. But you're right. He's a Bruin.
Keep your head up.
Obviously.
Keep your head up.
Thanks, DP.
And I won't call you a Michigan apologist, even though it sounded like a Michigan apologist when you a blind supporter. How's that?
Dan, I said we made the mistakes that one-loss teams deserve.
Okay, but that sounds like you're still a Michigan apologist. There's nothing wrong with being a Michigan apologist.
But I'm not apologizing. What am I apologizing for? For playing one of the classic games, for my school playing one of the classic games? It made too many mistakes.
Michigan loyalist, how's that?
I'll take it.
All right, good. God. All right. Have a good show.
Yeah, you bet.
That's Rich Eisen, popular host of the NFL Network. The Rich Eisen Show coming up in a half hour on DirecTV. The Audience Network, Channel 239. Your phone calls are next. Dan Patrick Show.
Up until now, we always purchased insulation to insulate. It would help keep our warm spaces warm and our cool spaces cool. But now, Owens Corning has changed all of that with Pure Safety high-performance insulation. Pure Safety not only insulates, but also contributes to a healthier, safer, and more comfortable environment for your family. First, it's a high-performance, all-purpose insulation. It efficiently fills cavities in your home with a layer of thermal protection. Next, Pure Safety insulation contributes to better indoor air. It stays put in the walls and floors and produces 50% less dust than some other insulation products. And that means better air for you and your family to breathe in. Pure Safety insulation is fire resistant. In the case of a fire, you'll have valuable extra minutes to escape to safety, minutes that can make all the difference. And finally, Pure Safety insulation reduces noise up to 50%. It helps keep outside noise out and reduces inside noise from traveling from room to room inside. Pure Safety high-performance insulation from Owens Corning, a single product that will help improve your family's health, safety, and comfort. Learn more at puresafetyinsulation.com. That's puresafetyinsulation.com. Pure Safety Insulation, the greatest home improvement you'll never see.
My name is Anthony Ponce, and I used to be a reporter on NBC, but I got tired of being part of traditional news media. So I quit that job and became a Lyft driver. And now I interview whatever passengers end up in my back seat. So if you want to hear the best stories that real people tell me when we're driving around the city, check out my podcast. It's called Backseat Rider on podcastone.com, the Podcast One app, and iTunes.
DP Show gear, by the way, go to danpatrick.com. Great t-shirts there. Online store, some high-quality hoodies. You got polos, you got baseball caps, all kinds of good stuff there. And hope they're reasonably priced. We wanted good quality, and we passed the savings on to you. Can we
Cyber Monday?
We should get our gear in Walmart now. Walmart. Go to danpatrick.com to see all the gifts we have. And if people are sending in ornaments, because we usually have you send in ornaments.
Whoa, we got to do the tree and everything.
Yes, we got to go get the tree.
Whoa.
Yeah.
We'll do it this week.
Yeah, so we need to get a tree.
Von Scrutum.
We have the tree. Yeah, Eric Von Scrutum.
Big German kid.
Yes, he can put it together. But we have to get the ornaments there. Remember when we got Chrissy Teigen to come in, and she was in that little elf outfit?
That was unbelievable.
Oh, my God.
How did you pull that off?
I don't know. I said, hey, we'd love you to help us decorate the tree. She came in, brought cookies, and was barely dressed.
Different world back then, huh?
And Fritzy all of a sudden believed in Christmas.
A lot of people converted religions that day.
I love that Fritzy he said, I'll take care of the ornaments at the bottom of the tree, while Chrissy Teigen was on a ladder taking care of the ornaments at the top of the tree. I'll put the star on the top of the tree here. All right, let me get some more phone calls in here. Bob in Ohio. Hi, Bob. Welcome to the program. Thanks for holding.
Hey, DP, how you doing today?
Good, sir.
Man, Chrissy Teigen could be on top of my tree too, brother.
All righty there.
I'll tell you what. I'm just going to say it. Anyway, I'm just going to do a little, best and worst of the weekend.
Okay.
First, I'd like to go off with the best and talk about Ohio State over the team up north. And it's kind of nice to follow up Rich Eisen to say that. I don't mean anything bad towards Rich, but I can't make that any more clear, by the way. Can't make that any more clear.
Okay.
The worst would be the Brownies. It's dismal. The same best and worst for me every single weekend.
Thank you, Bob. But I got the Browns. They're going to win a game. They are. They're going to win a game. They better. BJ in North Carolina. Hi, BJ.
Hey, 6 foot stuff of way too much turkey, and Cleveland is going to go over this year.
Okay.
Boy.
All right.
So I got my best and my worst for you. So best is, how about them Cowboy TV ratings? You got the 35 million people are watching on Thursday night. Good for the NFL. Good for the league. Worst, of course, is the Notre Dame defensive end stomping on ankles.
Oh, yeah.
USC heads. What are you doing, Jerry?
Yeah.
What are you doing? This is draft money.
Thank you, BJ. His best is the number of people who watch his Cowboys. So he's applauding the audience there for tuning in. What, McLovin?
It is kind of funny how the ratings problem goes away when the Cowboys are on TV.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything about the debates or any political fallout here.
How about a Raiders-Cowboys Super Bowl? Think people will tune in for that one?
Oh, boy. Yeah. But I think you would get a bigger number if it's Cowboys Patriots.
It's frustrating and disappointing.
Yeah, of course it is. Yes, Paulie.
Rich Eisen had a good point about Ohio State Michigan rematch as the final four. If the committee could pull that off,
well, just because it's a great game doesn't mean they play for the national championship.
Always remember that ratings have to be in their mind. The people in that room.
I agree with you. I do think that's part of the reason why Ohio State got in last year.
If Clemson loses to Vatech or Washington loses in the Pac-12 title game, they can move Michigan up to 3, and it's 2 versus 3. Oh, man.
Well, another game between those two, I'd have no problem with it, but you have to earn the right to be there. Just because you played a great game, we've had great games before, but that doesn't mean, hey, you guys should be playing for a national championship or being in the Final Four. If they somehow end up that way, I'd be fine with it because it'd be fun on a neutral site. Chad in Louisiana. Hi, Chad. Welcome to the program.
Hey, what's going on? How you doing, man?
Good, man.
All right, I'm going to start off with my worst of the weekend, which is LSU hiring Edo. I think they could have went a better route. If he was the answer, he would have got the job at SC, or he would still be coaching at Ole Miss, where he was the head coach for 3 years with a losing record. My best of the weekend were my Saints getting back on track, bouncing back, and getting back in the playoff hunt.
All right. Thank you, Chad. Let's see. A couple more phone calls in here. Scott in Florida. Hi, Scott. What do you have for me?
Hey, Danny. Condolences on your mom. Sorry to hear about that.
Thanks,
Semper Fi in honor of your dad from a fellow Marine. My worst, Dolphins running off 6 in a row. I mean, the best, Dolphins running 6 in a row. The worst was Brunson getting TKO'd in the first round in the Octagon of the UFC Saturday night. And I had a take on how come Penn State isn't being mentioned and possibly being in the top 4, especially if they take out Wisconsin.
It is weird, though, that Ohio State and Michigan ranked higher, even though Penn State is playing for a chance to win the Big Ten championship. And Wisconsin, for that matter, because it's just sort of a strange year for the Big Ten, but they become the SEC this year. Yes, Paul.
How does the committee deal with if either Wisconsin or Penn State blows out the other in the Big Ten title game?
Does Penn State move into the top 4 with a convincing win over Wisconsin? Is there any chance that they move in there? Does Wisconsin have any chance?
Who are you taking out? If Clemson and Washington hold serve?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's. Can Virginia Tech beat Clemson? I mean, they're 9-3, but part of me is sort of rooting for a little bit more chaos here. Can Oklahoma get in there? Any chance? Yeah, McLovin.
Michigan State played Michigan and Ohio State tough. Then Penn State blew the doors off them. Is Penn State good? Because all I had heard coming into it was Penn State is the worst of those 4 teams.
Well, early in the season, I kept hearing about, James Franklin just not getting it done at Penn State. They lost to Pitt, and then I think people had some thoughts, some doubts about that program. Then all of a sudden, they blocked the field goal with Ohio State, and then that sort of changed everything. Granted, it was a home game, but they still beat Ohio State. I don't think there were too many Big Ten teams that won big road games this year. That was sort of now, Ohio State beat Wisconsin, but you didn't have too many great road wins by the Big Ten this year. All right, we'll come back. Final call for phone calls, what we learned and what's in store tomorrow. We'll try to do all of that coming up.
Hey, listeners, just wanted to take a minute to thank all our great sponsors and all of you great listeners for supporting this podcast. We certainly couldn't do it without either of you. And I wanted to remind you that you can support our sponsors by going to our show page at podcast1.com, clicking on the Support This Podcast button, and there you will see all our wonderful sponsors that help make this show possible. Thank you for downloading, subscribing, and, of course, supporting. And now, back to the show.
Stay tuned for 60 seconds of AP News headlines right after this podcast.
I went to Ohio. I wasn't planning on going to Ohio, but my mom passed away on Tuesday, so I had to get there, and I had to pack quickly. I didn't know that she was going to pass away, so I didn't pack a suit. And I got there, and all of a sudden, we have to plan a funeral, and it's Friday is the funeral. I get a hold of NBC. They handle my wardrobe. So I talked to the wardrobe person, Amy. I said, can you send me out a suit for this funeral? And so they were going to send it out, and I thought I could get something on Thanksgiving. Well, FedEx didn't deliver where my brother lives on Thanksgiving. Friday morning, the wake starts at 9:30. I'm there in a pair of corduroys and a sweatshirt. I don't have any nice clothes. And at 9:15, FedEx shows up at the funeral home. I'm unpacking a suit, getting dressed in some little room at the funeral home, and then I get out there at like 9:28, and then all of a sudden people started coming in for the wake. And I kept thinking, I could be wearing this raggedy sweatshirt and corduroys and tennis shoes, and somehow the folks at NBC able to help me look nice. My mom would never have forgiven me if I didn't get dressed up for her wake. My mom planned out everything, what she was going to wear.
Really?
Jewelry, flowers, everything. She had it all planned out. So it actually turned out to be great. It was helpful because we were a mess. Like my brothers and I, we were messes, emotional messes. My sisters were awesome. They were the ones that were like, we got it. We'll take care of this thing. Like, yeah, Paul.
That's fascinating that your mom planned that out.
Yes.
Because she was almost 90?
It was in her will, 86. Okay. It was in her will that they keep her alive as long as possible so all the kids got to see her before she died. I mean, that's pretty cool. And we all got there, took out the breathing tube. She died 20 minutes later. But she said, keep me alive as long as you can. And they did. And we all got in, and she passed away 20 minutes later. And my youngest sister had the coolest thing. She said, I'm going to be the last one to leave. So we're all there with my mom. She's just passed away. And my sister Molly, she said, I'll be the last one out. And she did. So she was the last one out, turned off the lights, and closed the door. And she said, I literally turned out the lights. I told her I was going to turn out the lights. And she did. Turned out the lights, closed the curtain, and then we left. So it was a pretty cool moment. As cool as it can be when your mom passes away suddenly, but all of us were there. So now I got to get started on my will. What I'm going to wear, what I want you guys to wear, pallbearers, all those. Plus another thing, we nearly screwed up carrying the casket too. Because I was in front, and because of my height, I was putting all the weight in the back.
Oh, that's bad planning.
And
You're
these
tall.
guys, yes, and I said, why? It's not like you can do a rehearsal for lifting the casket. And then my brothers are complaining, like, oh, were you lifting anything? I said, yes, I was up front. Of course, that's the best photo op. I thought I'd get more pictures that way. Not kidding anybody. Let me see. Tilly in Indiana. Tilly.
Daniel Theodore.
Hey, how are you, Tilly?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
Spectacular.
Great. Well, I was required to give the best and worst. My best was IU football beating Purdue and going bowling for the second time in a row within the past 15 years. My worst was going to be how Michigan handled the most of the game against Ohio State until I found out about what happened with you this weekend. So the majority of the call was I wanted to give you my best. You know, you let me call in about 6 years or so ago, and the whole Penn State Jerry Sandusky fiasco was going on, and I appreciated that. So I just wanted to give you a big air hug from Bloomington, and hope you guys are doing well.
Thank you, Tilly. Great to hear from Tilly. Been a while. Of course, I used the fact that my mom died to make sure that my nephews got me beers, because at one point I'd say, could you go get me a beer? And they're like, well, what's wrong with you? I said, my mom just passed away. And they're like, well, you can't say that too soon. I go, no, my mom had a sense of humor. I had a sense of humor. Dwayne Wade will be on the program tomorrow. Reggie Aloysius Miller III will join us as well. Final results of the poll question, McLovin.
Is Michigan one of the best four teams in the country? 56% say yeah.
Okay. All right. I'd love to see a rematch between Michigan and the Ohio State.
I looked at the back end. Rich Eisen voted like 248 times.
What did you learn today, McLevin?
I learned that Rich Eisen actually thinks Michigan got a rough call there on Saturday.
He's a loyalist. Seton O'Connor, what'd you learn?
I learned thanks to Twitter there's actually an official term for realizing AC/DC is a great band. It's called a midlife crisis. And I hadn't.
Are you going through a midlife crisis?
Well, that's what, according to our faithful Twitter followers, are like, dude, welcome.
I thought when you said I had this revelation, like I thought, something spiritual happened to you, and you go, I realize AC/DC is a good band.
AC/DC is a great band. Those songs are awesome.
Paulie, what'd you learn?
All Matthew Stafford's friends and family wanted him to go to Texas. He didn't want to go.
What we learned brought to you by American Express. You card members don't want to miss out on this now through December 31st. A big reason for you to shop small at local stores in your neighborhood. Learn more and enroll your eligible card today at americanexpress.com/shop small. Thanks for joining us. We'll do it again tomorrow. Seton, Paulie, Fritz, and McLevin.
Thanks for listening to Dan Patrick On Demand.
That is a noble gesture.
Now you can listen to DP and the guys 24/7 on danpatrick.com.
That's pretty impressive.
Stay tuned for the latest AP News headlines from Podcast One, right after this. When shopping for car insurance, consider this. Geico has been saving people money on car insurance for over 75 years. So if you're serious about savings, it's simple. Go to geico.com. After 75 years, they know how to save you money.
AP Update. I'm Rita Foley. President-elect Donald Trump is tweeting that he's leaving his business empire to focus on being the nation's 45th president, bowing to pressure to avoid potential conflicts of interest between governing and profiting in the private sector. Trump tweeted this morning, I will be leaving my great business in total in order to fully focus on running the country, in order to make America great again. While I am not mandated to do this under the law, he tweets, I feel it is visually important as president to in no way have a conflict of interest with my various businesses. He said legal documents are being crafted which take him completely out of business operations. He adds that the presidency is a far more important task. The tweets this morning from President-elect Donald Trump. AP Update, I'm Rita Foley.